very hard morning. I ended up day on a high note, but waking up today was really difficult. I think I spent 40 or maybe even 50 minutes from the time like my alarm rang to when I actually properly got on the bike.
The roads in Bavaria were the best so far, and every little town was full of scent from the local bakery that was the only place open at early morning hours. Soon, I arrived at Salzburg in Austria, and the excitement from the approaching Alp mountains was building up. After all, I get to climb more than 70 meters across a single hill, at best a few days per year. Similar to most leaders, I chose to cross the Alps over Tauern Pass and Kachberghoche. Another option was Hochdor, that peaked at 2,504 meters. It seemed a bit easier, but I decided to skip it because the last and only time I've cycled at a similarly high altitude was 3 years ago. Also, the weather was questionable, so staying 800 meters lower seemed reasonable.
Woo!
Even though descending makes me really anxious, I always try to push myself to become better at it. Here, my top speed for both descents was 89 kilometers per hour. I didn't record anything on the second pass because honestly, I was too busy suffering. It pinched up to 20%, and near the top I spent a full 7 minutes grinding at a cadence of 39 revolutions per minute. My highest rear to front gear ratio was just 32/34, which for me meant that anything above 12% for an extended period of time was quite tough. I like to optimize my setup, but also stay resourceful and reasonable. Besides tires, I don't buy equipment specifically just for one race, and given that most of the time outside this race I'll be riding on flat terrain, changing the crankset and possibly the cassette just didn't seem worth it. I rolled through the rest of Austria, and in the afternoon I reached Italy. No disrespect to Austria, but I immediately felt a much stronger connection with Italy, and the sight of the Julian Alps ahead literally took my breath away. Pedaling softly towards my hotel at the foot of the hills, I soaked up every moment and briefly forgot that I'm even in a race.
Buongiorno. Such a great morning. I slept for an hour later just so I can climb up to CP1 in daylight, because this really was one of the highlights for the route, and I definitely wanted to see it. Like my the place where I stayed was literally like 200 meters from the start of the climb. So from the very get-go, just injecting a mountain in morning legs. But the good thing is that there was coffee. So I also took a bit of time to really prepare myself for the day, and I think it's paying off. Feeling pretty okay. Definitely feeling happy. Like the caffeine detox before the race is really working. I didn't even skip coffee for that long. So 2 weeks before the race, I decreased 2 daily cups to 1 cup. And those are like office cups, which are smaller than my homebrew cups. And then only 4 days before the race, I actually completely cut coffee. Otherwise I just wouldn't survive work, really. And yeah, didn't have any headaches. The transition was very smooth. And every day now when I drink coffee, I just almost instantly feel the difference. Absolutely crazy.
Everything sort of fell in place, and this climb ended up being the most magical experience I have ever had on a bike. I felt like my power was limitless, and I rose up the mountain and its rugged tunnels together with the morning sunlight.
I mean, this is just something else. Absolutely incredible.
At the top, a mandatory look at my bike leaning against Fing's photo, and then came the descent. After here, there was one more 10 kilometers long, 10% steep climb to the first checkpoint, and shortly after leaving it, the excitement wore down and I realized I'm actually really tired from all this climbing. I had been looking forward to Slovenia a lot. For such a small country, it has incredibly beautiful and diverse nature and a perplexingly large footprint in professional sports. However, I just didn't have the energy to appreciate it. I just dug my head down and made miles. So in the end, of all days, on this one I had the shortest stop time. For nearly 14 hours of ride time, I stopped for just an additional 1.5 hours. And after breakfast in Krijanska Gora at 10:40 a.m., for the rest of the day, I stopped only for 44 minutes. This enabled me to reach Croatia and move past Zagreb comfortably within daylight, concluding the second stretch of this amazing journey.